Next Wednesday, a few 100,000 people will stand in a field in northern Spain and look up at the sky for less than 2 minutes. Then it will be over, and there will be no replay. I want to talk about why that is worth crossing a continent for, and why almost nothing else in your life works that way anymore, which is not a failure on your part. It was designed. Start with what we have now, because it is genuinely good. If you miss a live stream, there is a recording. If you miss a film in cinemas, it will be on a streaming service in a few months. If you miss a concert, 40 people filmed the whole thing on their phones. Lectures are recorded. Meetings are recorded. Calls can be recorded. An entire conversation from Tuesday is sitting in a channel somewhere, searchable, waiting. And you can speed all of it up. Here's something worth knowing, because people get strangely moralistic about this. In 2025, 4 researchers published a meta-analysis in Educational Psychology Review. They pulled together 110 effect sizes from 24 separate studies on watching lecture videos at faster speeds. What they found was that at 1.5 times speed and below, the cost to how much you actually retain is small and often not statistically significant at all. So watching at 1.5 is not laziness. It does not decay. The evidence does not support that story. I do it. My watch later list is not a moral failing, and neither is yours. All of this, the recording, the streaming, the speed control, the save for later, was built to give you one specific thing, and it worked. It gave you control over when. But something came out with it, quietly, as a side effect, in the packaging. What came out was the possibility of missing it. Think about what a watch later list actually is. It is a promise you make to yourself that this thing will still be there when you have more room. And it will be. That part is completely true. The list is not lying to you. It keeps its promise every single time. Seneca noticed the same shape in the machinery about 2,000 years ago. He wrote an essay called On the Shortness of Life around the year 49, addressed to his father-in-law. And in chapter 9 there is a line I keep coming back to. The greatest hindrance to living, he says, is expectancy, which depends upon the morrow and wastes today. Expectancy. Later. The thing you are keeping for when there is room. He was not complaining about streaming. He had no watch later list, no queue, no unread tabs, which tells you the problem is much older than the technology. The technology just got extremely good at it. We built the most efficient later machine in human history, and we built it for good reasons, and it does exactly what it says. So here's the thing that does not fit. On Wednesday, the 12th of August, the shadow of the moon will land on the Earth in the far northeast of Siberia. It will cross the Greenland ice cap. It will click the west coast of Iceland. It will cross the North Atlantic. And then it will come ashore in northern Spain, cross a small corner of Portugal, and run down the peninsula to the Mediterranean. At its longest, on a cliff in western Iceland called Latrabjarg, the sun will be completely covered for 2 minutes and 18 seconds. In northern Spain, it is much shorter. In Oviedo, about 1 minute and 49 seconds. In Bilbao, 31 seconds. 31 seconds. And in Spain it happens low in the sky, close to sunset, which the people who chase these things say is the strange one. The light goes wrong in a direction you have never seen light go. Here's the part I find hard to get over. We can calculate this to the second, not roughly, to the second. Astronomers can tell you the path of eclipses thousands of years from now, which fields the shadow will cross, and how long it will sit on any one of them. And there is no mechanism, anywhere, at any price to move it 10 minutes later. You cannot buy the premium tier. You cannot request the recording. $10 million does not push it to Thursday. The most precisely predictable event in human experience is also completely immovable. It is the one thing we can see coming and cannot reschedule. And on average, and this really is only an average, because it swings enormously depending on where you happen to stand, any given spot on Earth waits around 375 years between total eclipses. Which brings me to the thing that made me want to make this. In August 2017, a total eclipse crossed the United States. Afterwards, a team at the University of Michigan, led by John Miller, ran a proper national study on it. A probability sample, a baseline survey in the spring, then a follow-up with the same people right after the eclipse. 215 million American adults watched it in some form. That is about 88% of the adult population. And around 20 million of them left the place where they live and traveled to be inside the path. 20 million people, for 2 minutes. Sit with how strange that is for a second. These were not astronomers. That is far too many people to be astronomers. These were ordinary adults who took a day off work, paid 4 times the normal rate for a motel room, sat in 6 hours of traffic, drove to a field in Kentucky, and stood in it. In 1999, the shadow crossed Europe, Cornwall, northern France, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Romania. Hundreds of millions of people were in a position to see it, and it is the last time the shadow touched mainland Europe. People who were 9 years old that August still tell you exactly where they were standing. Not what it looked like, where they were standing. So what is everybody chasing? Because it is not the image. You can see a better picture of totality on your phone right now. Higher resolution, better angle, the corona in colors your eye physically cannot resolve. If it were about the view, the phone would have ended eclipse tourism in about 2012. I think it is this. An eclipse hands you back 3 things at once, and all 3 have quietly gone missing from almost everything else. 1. It starts when it starts. You did not choose the time and nobody checked your calendar. 2. You have to physically be there, not near it, inside a strip of shadow roughly 100 kilometers wide. 200 kilometers to the south you get a deep partial eclipse, which is genuinely interesting and is not the same thing at all, and anyone who has seen both will tell you that with slightly too much force. 3. When it is finished, it is finished. There is no version of it that waits for you. Those 3 conditions used to just be the water we swam in. A television program went out at 8, and if you were not in the room at 8, you missed it. And on Monday, everybody talked about it and you had nothing to say. A match was played at 3. A newspaper printed once a day, and then it was yesterday. I am not nostalgic about that. Most of it was simply inconvenient, and a lot of people got left out of things for no good reason. I would not go back. But those 3 conditions turn out to be the recipe for a piece of time you can still find 20 years later. And if you want to test that, you do not have to take my word for it. Think of a night you can still see clearly, not one you have photos of, one you can see. I would guess that almost all of them had a start time you did not set, a place you had to physically be, and no possibility of doing it again on Thursday. There is a study I want to bring in here, and I want to be careful with it because the popular version of it is wrong. In 2014, Linda Henkel published a paper in Psychological Science. She took people on a guided tour of an art museum. For some objects, they were told to just look. For others, take a photograph. The next day, she tested what they remembered. The photographed objects came out worse. Fewer objects recalled, fewer details, worse memory of where things sat in the room. It got reported everywhere as taking photos ruined your memory, and that is where most people stopped reading. But there is a second half. When she had people zoom in and photograph one specific part of an object, the impairment disappeared. Their memory was fine, and not only for the part they had zoomed in on, for the whole object. So it was never the camera. Henkel's own explanation is that when people rely on the device to record the event for them, they do not have to attend to it themselves. Zooming in forces you to look at something. Pointing and shooting lets you leave. That is the same shape as Seneca's line, 2,000 years apart. The problem is not the tool. The problem is the exact moment you hand the thing off to later. Which brings me to the part that turned this around for me. Marcus Aurelius has a passage in Book 2 of the Meditations, section 14. The argument is dry, almost mathematical. He says nobody loses any life other than the one they are living right now. You cannot lose the past because you no longer have it. You cannot lose the future because you do not have it yet. The present is the only thing that can be taken from you, because it is the only thing you are actually holding. Normally that gets quoted as a be here now line and it slides straight off. Put it next to an eclipse and it stops being decorative. An eclipse is the purest example of something outside your control. You cannot influence it, speed it up, delay it, own it, or get it back. In the Stoic sorting, the one where this column is yours and that column is not, it sits entirely in the second column. All of it, every part. And here's what is strange about that. Nobody suffers over it. Nobody is bitter that the eclipse would not wait for them. Nobody feels cheated by the 2 minutes. 20 million people arranged their lives around something that gave them absolutely no say in anything, and they drove home happy. We usually suffer over the things we cannot control because some part of us half believes we can. The eclipse never offers that illusion, not for a second. It never pretends to be negotiable. So there is exactly one thing left available to you, and it happens to be the thing we have had the most practice avoiding. Being there while it happens. That is what makes those 2 minutes stick. Not that they are rare, that they never pretended they could wait for you. You do not need to fly to Iceland. Almost none of us will be in that shadow, and that includes me. But here's the thing you can actually do this week. Put one thing in your calendar that meets all three conditions. It starts at a fixed time you did not choose. You have to be physically there. And when it ends, it is gone. It does not have to be impressive. A friend set in a room above a pub, a local match, a sunrise, which is unreasonably good at this and costs nothing at all, a meal where somebody is waiting for you at a specific time, something in your town that happens once a year and that you have never actually gone to. One rule, and it is the only part that matters. Do not give it a fallback. No, I will catch it later. No, I will watch the clip. The fallback is just later wearing a different coat, and the second you install one, you have quietly turned the thing back into content. The variable is not how spectacular it is. The variable is whether it is genuinely, unarguably true that you cannot get it back. Next Wednesday, for about 90 seconds, it will go dark over northern Spain. Birds will do something strange. The temperature will fall. Somebody who spent 2,000 euros to stand in a particular field will start crying and will not entirely be able to say why. You will probably not be there. I will not be there either. But you can do one thing this week that cannot be replayed. And I think that is closer to the point than the eclipses. Because the things you can replay will never need you to show up. That was the whole deal, and most of the time it is a good deal. Just not for everything.